think ketchup is disgusting, actually.
Well, that's the first thing people heard. And Kevin thinks it's overrated.
It's not disgusting. It's just overrated. If you think about it, other than on French fries, what do you really need ketchup for?
Ketchup in meat is very good in any way, shape, or form.
I know people. Yeah.
No.
You don't think so? Ketchup in meat. I mean, again, like ketchup in brisket. If you're a brisket person, is awesome.
If you're a brisket person, don't you have it with barbecue sauce of some way, shape, or form?
Well, most ketchup the ketchup in North Carolina is made with barbecue. The barbecue sauce in North Carolina is made with ketchup. I mean, it's the #1 ingredient.
Well, there are a lot of things with ketchup in them, but like
or tomato base. Like, there's a difference, right?
Right.
if you're eating a hamburger, like, even though routinely ketchup goes on it, really all you need is mustard and a pickle and an onion and a tomato. So.
Well, first of all, it's like, I mean, I would rather have a slice of tomato than ketchup on a burger.
Yes.
But to me, and I'm very, as I'm sure everybody knows from watching this webcast, I'm very particular. I cannot stand mustard. I cannot stand relish, and I cannot stand ketchup. I eat with French fries. I usually douse them in vinegar and dunk them in blue cheese. That's a Buffalo thing.
That's not even French fries anymore. But
no, that's right. I'm with you on that. You've just set yourself up just on with our wide-ranging audience. It's just being totally weird.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, my wife doesn't eat condiments at all. No condiments whatsoever. She does not believe in any single condiment she will eat. The closest thing she will eat that's a condiment is salsa, which I think is a condiment. But
it's a condiment. It is.
Only recently a condiment. But anything else she won't eat.
With the younger generation, I've noticed ranch dressing has become the new ketchup.
Yeah,
ranch dressing is awesome.
Dip damn near anything in ranch dressing.
Yeah, I admit I put ranch on more than a few things. And my dad used to just blindly put ketchup on anything. He still does, and so we used to just call that tomato wine. That was his tomato wine.
I like that.
In Buffalo, it's blue cheese more than ranch because of blue cheese for chicken wings. But the only condiment that I accept is mayonnaise on a hamburger. That's the only one I'll take.
I do like vinegar on my fries. I must have some English heritage some way.
Yeah, some Canadian or something. Yeah.
Yeah, fish and chips. The malt vinegar on French fries is fantastic.
Yeah, it is good.
I'll tell you, the worst condiment on earth is Old Bay seasoning. That is the worst.
Oh wow, yeah, that's overused.
I don't consider that a condiment, though. I mean, that's just a seasoning.
All right, whatever.
It's close.
I see it in places in the condiment little, rotisserie.
I'm with you on that one, man. I agree.
Here's an interesting fact. I noticed that I have a friend in the food industry, in the distribution end of it, and we got to talking about his business, and the highest markup of any food item, according to him, and it's just astronomical. It's like over 3,000 or 4,000% is on steak sauce. A bottle of good steak sauce is relatively expensive in terms of the cost of other grocery items, and there's really no need for that. But the issue is that you hang on to a bottle of steak sauce for like years and years.
Yes.
On The Walking Dead, hasn't been food produced in years, but there are probably thousands of bottles of steak sauce still floating around out there that will be consumed over the next 40 years.
Yeah, A1 doesn't have an expiration date, Kevin.
No,
A1 is horrible. Let's just throw this out there.
So.
I got the Old Bay for you there, Russ.
There's only one kind of steak sauce for me, and I'm trying to find the
Old Bay has never made its way to Michigan. I've never heard of that.
Oh, be thankful.
Yeah. Okay.
Michael put that on his French fries. It's disgusting.
No. But I know people who put this on popcorn.
Ugh.
They sprinkle Old Bay on popcorn. It's basically like paprika and like bay leaf, and it's all blended up. And yeah, it's just
people
without
taste buds. That's what they are.
Right. There you go. But as much as I hate ketchup, I do like hot sauce, like Frank's hot sauce. I do like Tabasco. But ketchup is just sort of there and yuck. I just can't stand it.
I'll throw this out there too. The link between the older generation and the new generation is macaroni and cheese.
Yes,
that's a good point.
Both generations, the new generation, the kids of today, they still like their mac and cheese.
Yes.
Yep.
Although they're trying to gourmet it up a little bit. Like if you go up to restaurants now, you'll see lobster mac.
That's true.
Yeah, that's common around here actually.
Well, even the default is Kraft macaroni and cheese. If you go to the store now, they've got they used to just have the same elbow macaroni with the same. Now it's like double the cheese or the pinwheels or the all different types of pastas now. Now they have it in the little microwave bowl, and I tried that once. It was absolutely horrendous. I'm just give me the box, give me the packet of. You
want the mac and cheese now. By the way, I'm sorry, I'm coming up. This is the best steak sauce on the planet. Okay, if you ever see this, Peter Luger Steakhouse Old Fashioned Sauce. This stuff, it's like if you combine grid steak sauce with cocktail sauce. There's like a cocktail bite to it. It's phenomenal on almost anything. Like my go-to snack it's like a whole bucket of grape tomatoes, just plain grape tomatoes, and this sauce on it, and that's just. Is
that about $8 a bottle, or what is that?
It's not cheap, and what's weird about it is it's only on display in the refrigerated section of so it's usually near the steaks refrigerated because you have to keep it refrigerated. But all the time as opposed to the other steak sauces. But yeah, this stuff, if you ever have it, chance to get it, if you want to just ever blow people's mind with like a really cool barbecue, use this stuff to barbecue with. Because people are just like, wow, that sounds like, it feels like you combined all these great things. It's really just this. We buy this by the bushel. That's definitely.
Barbecue chicken is the messiest thing to cook during the summer. It's
not even very good.
And it's not any good. I have never gone to a cookout where the barbecue chicken is even remotely tasty.
Right.
It has to be on a rotisserie.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the barbecue chicken that you get at a good barbecue chicken restaurant is just fantastic, and everybody tries, and they do they rub it and and marinate it, and they do everything, but it just isn't as good.
I marinate all the chicken that I barbecue during the summer. I put I soak it in like orange juice and like apple vinegar or something like that, and put it on the barbecue, and it tastes fantastic after I cook it. But barbecue chicken, where you're slopping, that KC Masterpiece or anything else that you put on there,
come on, man.
Well, no, I'm just talking. I mean, that's one of the reasons why, because the barbecue sauce that you put on there is not the great.
The key to good ribs or good chicken on a grill is not to make it saucy, but to do it with a rub. A dry rub always gives you the best grill. One thing that I cannot do, I love grilled salmon, but no matter, I can cook a little bit, but whenever I do the salmon, it never tastes as good as when I'm at a restaurant.
Salmon's tricky. I can't. I figured out what happened to Orange Ruffy. Remember we had this discussion before?
Oh yeah.
When I was at the Smithsonian, and there was a whole section on how Orange Ruffy was almost extinct. How they overfishing this thing to the hilts, and people didn't know because it was kind of a newer thing, and it tastes like it was called the poor man's lobster. If you remember, it used to had like a lobster taste to it. Got completely overcooked all the time, and and now it's so funny. Now it's completely. It is almost extinct, so that's why you won't see it.
Yeah. Mm.
Well, if every city was like Buffalo, haddock would be extinct.
Oh, you're funny.
Here's the thing, though, with salmon. Salmon Magic works really well, Kev. You just put that on, and you can
Magic.
Yeah, you can pan fry it. It's called Chef Paul's Salmon Magic. You could even use it on vegetables. It's great.
Yeah. Mm.
Wow, interesting.
All right, well, let's get on.
You guys know that this is where you'll find out about all your better food products here. So.
Damn it, I'm getting hungry.
I know, seriously.
Oh, by the way, horseradish is not overrated.
No, it's not.
Horseradish is underrated.
That's definitely a thing, though, that you don't eat until you're older. Like there's no way kids think it is the most. And I remember thinking it was the most horrid thing ever.
Until you hide it in cocktail sauce, because kids love cocktail sauce.
Right, kids love cocktail sauce. That's a very good point.
And cocktail sauce, as we all know, is this horseradish, Worcestershire sauce, and ketchup. Oh, God. I do need ketchup. I need ketchup for cocktail sauce.
The only way to gefilte fish is with horseradish. Otherwise, you can't choke down the gefilte fish. We've been that for my whole life.
I know. I've had to, because I'm married to a Jewish woman, I've had to deal with plenty of these Jewish breakfasts where gefilte fish is served, and oh my gosh,
horseradish.
Horseradish, that's the key.
Horseradish is used in plentiful amounts on beef on weck in Buffalo. That's the delicacy.
Beef on weck, yes.
Roast beef sandwich with the Kimmelwick salty roll and the horseradish.
We're talking.
Outstanding. Outstanding.
Yes, it is.
All right. With that, we do have to start the show. Still the 22nd.
Over. What do you mean?
It was the show. It was the 22nd when we started the show. It's still the 22nd. I'm just checking. Okay, so.
It's dinner time.
Hello, Hockey World. Hope you're hungry. It's July 2nd.
Nope.
No.
Sorry. You know what happened? My my little portable Thames unit I'm wearing right now for my back just went through this crazy mode and totally threw me off. So you guys can be happy to know that I'm being electrically shocked every 30 seconds.
Back is being tased.
Hello, Hockey World. Hello, Hockey World. Oh my gosh. Hello, Hockey World. It's Wednesday, July 22nd, 2015.
I'm Michael Agello.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
Kevin Allen of USA Today Sports.
And I am Eklund, and you're watching the HockeyBuzzCast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast where we tell you all about condiments and such, and some hockey. And we're gonna get in now. We said yesterday that we were gonna do this worst of thing, and Kevin pointed out after we got off the air it wasn't his favorite thing in the world. And the more I thought about it, thank God you said that, Kevin, because I don't. It was one of those things that, like, yeah, it makes a good. But then when you start trying to figure out the worst players, you really just can't help but offend people. And I don't. I've kind of stayed away from being negative. So thanks, Kevin, for catching it.
See, I would have had no problem with it.
I know, but I really appreciate that Kevin caught it. And I was like, you know what? He's absolutely right. So we're not going to do that. Instead, we're going to give out some cool other awards. But how we're going to do this is we're going to nominate people, a couple of awards per show, and we'll nominate people for this. And then once we have the nominations together, we'll do an actual show of the ceremony where these things are handed out. But so in the nominations, we can sort of make our arguments, and then I figure we'll post these as polls on my blog as well, and let people decide who's actually going to win. So that's the kind of way we'll do it.
Well, when we announce it, do we have to? I think we should wear suits.
Oh yeah, we should have a special. Yeah, I will definitely do it. I'll do the show.
I'll put on a suit for that. That's fine.
Yeah,
I'll do the show from a podium. Yes, I'll go to the high school and see if I can do it in front of a big screen, or just get a green screen. I'll work one way or the other. So the first thing I want to do today, though, is I had a conversation. We were talking yesterday about divisional alignment and how this could possibly go, right? And I had a conversation this morning as I was preparing for all these awards with somebody who is in the know, who told me that he thought the most likely scenario was 8 4-team divisions, and that it would work something like this. And he gave me the gist of it. He wouldn't tell me much more than this, but I want to show you something. Now, basically, the way it would work is there would be 4 teams in each division. There'd be 8 of them. I just said that, right? Yep. You would play, but your division would be paired with a sister division, and that sister division would rotate, so it wouldn't be the same every year. So essentially, how he told me is the divisions are, and I'll show you the first pairing of divisions that he had mentioned to me. So I think this is pretty cool. And then I'll explain how you how the schedule works. Okay, so here's here's the 2 divisions that he said there are two of the divisions, the Canada East Division and the U.S. Northeast Division. And this is he basically said, these names were not obviously anything, but the idea here is, okay, you've got the Canadian teams, Montreal, Quebec, Toronto, and Ottawa, and the Northeast Division is the Islanders, Rangers, Devils, and Bruins. And just to use this as an example so you get scheduling straight, you would play every team. So basically, since there's 32 teams, right, there's 24 teams that aren't in your division or your sister division, right? So you would play the other teams, the other 24 teams, each home and away, right? That creates 48 games. Then what you do is you play the teams in your sister division each twice home and away, and then you play the teams in your division 8 times, and this comes up to 82 games. So basically, it's a lot of playing 8 times, but like we've talked about, Kevin, in the past, these are the teams that people really want to see, right? Like we've talked about this 8 times, And now what happens here? So that's one pairing. I'll show you another pairing now. This is the U.S. Atlantic Division and the U.S. Southern Division. And in this case, you have Pittsburgh, Philly, Pittsburgh, Washington, Columbus in the Atlantic, and the South would be Carolina, Nashville, Florida, Tampa. And I like that. I like that pairing too. And here's the next division. Let me get to it here. Let me just clear some space here. Make this work. Okay, so the next division is this. And a West Division, which is Edmonton, Calgary, Winnipeg, Vancouver. U.S. West Division: L.A., Anaheim, San Jose, and Las Vegas. And that's no. And then I'll tell you the last one before we can debate these, because they are fun to debate. Is the U.S. Lakes Division, which is Buffalo, Detroit, Chicago, and Minnesota, and the U.S. Central Division, which is Dallas, St. Louis, Phoenix, and Colorado. So these would be paired together, but then in another year, for example, so let's go to the top division, which, the top one, Montreal might be paired, the Canada East Division could be paired in the next season, with the U.S. Atlantic Division or the U.S. South Division. And the idea is you'd have these pairings, so you get to see different teams, but you would really create these rivals. And the way the playoffs would work, he said, would be the 8 first-place seeds would get in, and then the next 8 best records. So there would be 8 wild cards, spewed throughout the entire thing. And then from there, he wasn't sure how they would do the playoffs itself, but the 8 teams would obviously have home ice advantage that won their divisions. Now the big things about this that I was thinking about, first of all, that I don't like about it is Montreal and Boston not being in the same division, of course, and Toronto and Buffalo not being in the same division.
Yeah, there's more than that, Eck.
Oh, there's tons of it, but I'm talking about the top rivals, right?
You know what? But you got to have Philly and New York. New Jersey is not a top rival of New York. They might think they are, but they're not.
Right, but that's a big part of their income, coming over.
And Buffalo has absolutely no rivalry with Detroit, Chicago, and Minnesota. If Buffalo was put in a division and it wasn't the division with the Canadian teams, it would have to be with Pittsburgh, Columbus. In terms of geographic rivals that were close to them. So I don't think that would work. But Buffalo is they've been in the same division with Toronto for a long time. They're geographic rivals. Montreal, they've been in a division for most of their existence. Boston as well. So it would be tough. And also, the purpose of Vegas is to give a rivalry for Arizona. And
that's exactly what I said right off the bat. Right, I said that exact same thing, and I agreed with you. But what I was told was that rival, the Vegas rival, they really see are the Southern California teams. They really see it as L.A. and Anaheim being the Vegas rival.
Well, all those teams are close. Like L.A., Las Vegas, and Arizona are all within driving distance.
Right.
San Jose, that's not in that mix.
Right.
Now, San Jose, and then you could move San Jose out of there, I'm sure. These were sort of, just a spattering. He also said he thought that you could have Colorado in that other division and put Phoenix and Las Vegas together with Dallas and St. Louis.
See, I think what I would do is I would put at the 2 LA teams, Arizona and Las Vegas together, and then I would put San Jose with Vancouver, Calgary, and Edmonton.
Okay.
And then I would put Minnesota, Colorado,
Winnipeg,
and Dallas together.
Mm-hmm.
And again, we're talking time zone. They're just
time zones. Yeah, exactly.
Going down the time zone.
And then St. Louis, Chicago, Detroit, and Nashville.
Or Columbus.
Yeah.
But the problem with that is then you take them out of Pittsburgh. But
that's why I said Nashville.
Yeah, maybe it is Nashville, because Nashville and St. Louis are close.
And you could put Washington with Carolina, Florida, and Tampa.
Yeah, no, I think you're right, Mike. I think it should be Nashville, because Nashville in proximity, and Nashville and Chicago actually now have a rivalry.
They have a very good rivalry.
Yeah, so you put those 4 together, and then Detroit may not have a beef on that, because the thing they objected to was how many games they had that were 2 time zones away.
Right.
I think you could put up with an 8 o'clock start.
And the rotating sister divisions isn't unprecedented. That's what the NFL does. They have a formula where
they basically do that.
Based on where you finished the previous year, you play certain teams in the AFC, but in the NFC, you play one division, in the NFC every third year. So that there is a precedent there, and that does make a bit of sense. So then every couple years, like say Buffalo would play Florida three or
Right.
4 times.
Right. They would play 4 times against them every couple of years, and
Right.
that would keep positive. I mean, the problem is the 4 Canadian teams in the East. How do you separate? I mean, Ottawa's the only one you could pull out of there, I guess.
I had trouble with the math on this though. Let's go back on this. So
Okay.
we're going to have 48 games with the other
Did I add
4
wrong?
divisions. Is that right? So there was.
Yes.
So
I have it on my blog. Let me see if I added wrong.
So 48. There seems to be a math problem here.
It would be 48 and 30.
You're right. You know what? I put 42. Okay, so you're right about that. So it's 48. That's 48, 16. So you're actually adding 6 games to the schedule if you have 48, 16,
Not
24.
an 88-game schedule.
Yeah, there's something wrong there.
Right.
Oh, let's go back though. What happens if you do 3 with the sister division? So now you're doing that's an extra 9 games, and then you're playing 24. So that's 72. That's 81 games.
Okay, so that's closer.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not bad. So if you play 3 games with your sister division and
Now, what if you did 81 games, and then you had a special dispensation for all the number 1 rivalry? So it could either be Toronto and Buffalo,
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
You could do Columbus and Pittsburgh.
Right, you could have that straight up rivalry as the extra
So
game.
that would give you the 82nd game.
That's really cool. I like that idea. I think that what I like about this is I do like the idea of 8 games versus division opponents. I think that is cool.
Yeah, I mean that is going back to the way the divisions were in the 90s, when it was 4 games home, 4 games away, and they went away from that because fan bases were sort of getting sick of seeing, like in Buffalo, they were sick of seeing Boston 4 times and Montreal 4 times. Those were the tickets that were toughest to move sometimes because they saw, the Canadians again. Jeez.
Okay, I'm going to have to cut you off there. Because the facts don't support that.
I know.
I'm going to give you the history of what went on as someone who's written about it and watched when it went on. The NHL tried to do what they felt the fans wanted them to do. So they surveyed all the season ticket holders. They looked at what happened in the secondary market with the sale of those tickets that you said they couldn't give away. So maybe that's only in Buffalo. And they made the determination that fans loved those rivalry games based on the way of their behavior, what they said on their surveys, and the way they bought tickets. And they put it all out there, and as you know, it was a disaster.
Right.
And people complained endlessly. So what they said and what they did wasn't the same as how they reacted when the NHL changed it to accommodate that. So saying all that, that's the problem I have with this, is because we're going to be right back where we were before, where even though historically NHL fans have enjoyed more games against teams because they got to know them, basically, I think what they like is they know the players on the other team, so they can get revved up against them, and they can complain about this guy and that guy, and they know the matchups, they know what needs to be done to accomplish. But they won't be happy. They won't be happy with this. If you say you're going to play 8 teams, people are going to complain to no end about that.
Yeah, no, you're right about that.
Because Mike's absolutely right about that. People did not like when we had more. Division games.
Yeah. I mean, I guess if you played your division 6 times, that would take out 6 games, and that would take you right to 82. So if you did your division 6 times, and you did the sister division 4 times, and then everybody else twice, am I right about this? Math? Can you?
So that's 18 and 48 is 66. Now we're still not quite right because we got 16. You're going to play 3. 4 games would be 12. So.
Stupid math. All right, so.
So 6 games against your division, a 14 division. That's 18 games plus the 48. So that's 66, and then you.
18. It is 66. You're right. 66.
Okay, now you're going to play 4 games against your sister teams. Well, that's another 12 games, so that gets you to 78.
4 games against your sister teams is 16 because there's 4 teams in the other division.
Oh, that's right. I apologize.
That gets you to 82.
That gets you 82. That's right. I keep adding that wrong.
Okay.
What you have to do is 6 games. That makes sense.
Right.
So, all right. So that's how you get to 82. 6 games with your division, 4 games with your sister division, and once against every team. That's very clean.
It's clean, and 6 is not bad. 6 is not 8.
Right.
Three games home and away is not. That's not. I mean, right now there are. I think it's 1 or 2 teams in the current divisional setup that you're playing 3 times at home. Most of the teams you're playing 4 times, 2 home, 2 away. There's either 1 or 2 teams, depending on how many teams are in the division, that you play that extra game. So right now, some teams play other teams 3 times at home or 3 times on the road. So it wouldn't be a stretch if they played everybody 3 away and 3 home.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we got it clean. We got the scheduling clean now. That's good. Stick with that for a second. Now let's work on the divisions. I want to go back to your divisions, Kevin, and see if we can figure this out. Because we're gonna whatever I get, I'm gonna send this to the NHL today. All right. So let's work this out.
Let me give a novel idea. How about splitting Montreal and Quebec in one division and Ottawa and Toronto in another division? You'd put Ottawa, Toronto, Buffalo.
You can't possibly separate Montreal and Toronto.
Well, I mean,
let's talk about the top rivalries in the NHL first off. All right, let's start there. What are they? So they're
Islanders, Rangers.
Islanders, Rangers, right?
Montreal, Boston.
Montreal, Boston.
Pittsburgh, Philadelphia.
Yep.
Chicago, St. Louis.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Oh, so you know what? If you did this, so.
I think how I have the West is the only way to go.
Yeah, give me that again, Kev, because I'm going to write it down here as we do this.
Arizona and Las Vegas and the 2 LA teams, Anaheim and the Kings.
Agreed.
Okay.
And San Jose, Vancouver, Edmonton, and Calgary.
Right.
Okay.
And then Winnipeg and Minnesota together, and then Dallas and Colorado.
All Central teams.
Yeah.
So slow down for a second. Minnesota, Winnipeg, Dallas,
Colorado.
And Colorado.
Dallas, Colorado. Okay, gotcha.
And then we go Chicago, Detroit, St. Louis, and Nashville.
Right.
Right. That's a good division right now, but these things change over time, so let's just... Okay, so that's the West. I like it. Okay, so now the East is... Okay, so starting... Oh, I had a Southern division, which I had Nashville in. So if you have Nashville and the other thing, you have to take Washington out and put them in the South?
Right. Washington would go with the 2 Florida teams and Carolina.
Yep.
Right.
Buffalo would have to go. Buffalo's out of the U.S. Lakes division.
Right, they're out of the U.S. Lakes division. So now, when Buffalo's not there, not with Detroit now, so Buffalo
would replace Pittsburgh. Would be in the division with Pittsburgh and Columbus.
I think I would go Boston, Montreal, Toronto,
Quebec.
Well, the only problem with that is I want to put Buffalo.
That's where it does. That's where it does. It's tougher in the East because one way or the other you're gonna split up a rivalry. I mean, to me, it's got to be the 3 New York teams in Philadelphia. Right now, you have the 3 New York teams in Boston. I think that there's more.
What if you have the 3 New York teams in Buffalo? What if you have a New York division?
It doesn't work.
It doesn't work. Buffalo is not a natural rival for the Islanders, Rangers, and Devils.
Okay.
Yeah, and in spite of the upstate, downstate animosity and the sort of rivalry, it just doesn't work.
Nobody cares.
Yeah,
I think what if you got to go Toronto, Montreal, Buffalo, and
Ottawa,
Quebec.
Toronto, Montreal, Buffalo, and Quebec.
That's why I was saying.
Okay, then you go
Boston.
No, that's why I was saying it might make more sense to split up the Ontario teams and the Quebec teams. Then you could put Boston and Buffalo with Toronto and Ottawa, and then you could put.
I think you got to put Quebec in there with Montreal. I mean, you can't have.
I do too.
Toronto's got to be with Montreal.
Yeah, I mean, so Montreal, Quebec, Toronto, and
Buffalo.
But the problem with that is then you've broken up Boston. So Boston would go with New York then, and then what's that leave? It leaves Philadelphia,
Pittsburgh, Columbus,
Then
and
you bring
Ottawa.
New York and Philly.
Ottawa. So Ottawa.
Yeah,
Columbus.
Ottawa's the team that's getting sort of screwed in a sense.
They get Pittsburgh and Philly and Columbus, which aren't terribly bad location wise.
There's no natural
All
rivalry.
right, what if we put Columbus with the two Florida teams? Because look, this Pittsburgh-Columbus rivalry is 3 years old.
Right.
Let's not get carried away.
Right.
Okay. So Florida, the two Florida teams, Carolina and Columbus. Okay.
Yes, move Washington.
Now we can go Pittsburgh, Washington, Philadelphia,
And
Ottawa.
Buffalo.
and
Boston or Buffalo?
no, I want to keep Buffalo in that group. I think I want to go Boston. I think we're going to have to break up Boston and Montreal. You got to break up somebody.
Yeah.
You do.
Cam Neely will be heartbroken.
So now you've got Philadelphia and Pittsburgh are still together, and
Pittsburgh and Washington are together.
Washington, I mean, that's still a drivable thing. And Washington and Pittsburgh with Ovechkin, Crosby.
Yeah, that's a great rivalry right now.
Yeah, you got to keep them together. So you put Boston in. Now you got the 3 New York teams and
Ottawa.
Now, hey, look, it's not ideal, but something's got to give.
Yeah, if you put Boston, so you put Ottawa with 3 New York teams.
Well, I mean, it doesn't make any sense, but
Right.
that's what we
Boston and New York. I thought there's such a rival between Boston and New York in general.
I just think the Buffalo-Toronto thing goes back to the 1970s.
Yes.
Yeah.
You cannot break up Toronto and Montreal, and Quebec and Montreal have to be in the same division.
Right.
Those 4 have to, in my mind, all of those are paramount. Now, I can make a case that Boston and Montreal are paramount as well, but not quite like the geography of those 4. So.
Right.
And secondarily, Kevin, the rivalry between Toronto and Ottawa, that provincial rivalry, it's not really a rivalry because every time Toronto played Ottawa in the playoffs, they beat them. So it's not really a rivalry, but there is that that capital city, big city hatred between Ottawa and Toronto, and it would be split up there. To put Ottawa in a division with 3 New York teams or wherever we're putting them, it's one team is going to lose out in terms of a big rival in this construct because the divisions are only 4 teams. Boston's going to lose out, or Ottawa's going to lose out, or
Buffalo's going to lose out. That's why I put Buffalo with Detroit, because I know that
there's no rivalry there either.
That could be a rivalry. They're so close to each other. That's a rivalry waiting to happen, and they're all in the Great Lakes. These are like the Great Lakes division.
We almost need a list. How many rivalries are we creating, and how many are we breaking up?
Right.
I think there's more. I think there's more of a potential of a rivalry between, say, Buffalo and Pittsburgh and Columbus. They're all, that's geographically. But the thing is, Buffalo and Toronto is the one for the Sabres that I think is the most important. They jack up the prices to ACC level prices and still sell out every single game against Toronto.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing that always needs to be remembered in this, I'm absolutely sure there are people watching this that are just going and saying, "Oh, we can't do it."
I know. Oh no, there's no question about it.
But the reason I bring that up is what they then have to do is, all right, then you come up with it. Because what we're saying in this exercise is, this, and we don't even know if this is true, but maybe somebody believes this is the best way to make this work. And now, if it is, somebody's going to be hurt on it. There's no perfect solutions. We have 15 teams in the West, and we have 17 in the East to start out with.
Right.
And even if it were 16-16, there's time zone issues. There's promises made. Detroit has, put up with a lot, and they're not going to want to go to any place where they have too many time zones they have to deal with that are more than one away. So there's a lot of issues here.
And how anxious is somebody like Dallas going to be to fly to Winnipeg 3 times a year? And I think that's the right construct in terms of time zones rather than as a determination. But things like that are going to be a problem, as opposed to what's there right now, where you have.
But that really isn't a problem, Mike, because that is not something. If you look on the map, Dallas is far from everywhere.
Yeah, they are.
I mean, if we put them with their nearest rivals, I mean, their nearest cities, well, that would work better, but that causes issues elsewhere. So
and the other consideration here is, and we're focusing on what the league will be like after expansion, but what if we have a team like the Coyotes or a team like the Panthers that move?
Right.
So we're going to have a rejumble of like 4 divisions because one team moved from Florida to Kansas City or from Arizona to Seattle. I mean, it's going to, whatever rivalries get developed because of this divisional structure, it'll have to be changed based on a team moving from one place to the other.
Right. Well, remember, I mean, there's no saying here that we couldn't somehow have a team that rotates in through that Buffalo and Boston get to be with Toronto and Montreal on alternating years in their division or something like that. Like, there's no reason these have to stay exactly the same every year is what I'm saying. I mean, right now, the problem is you have too many rivalries in the East, right? That's the issue with the East. There's too many rivalries. I mean, you're killing the Flyers-Rangers rivalry here too, and that's a big one.
Back to the 70s.
Now we're having rotating divisions and rotating schedules. I'd hate to be the schedule maker in the NHL. I think they'd have a stroke.
Yeah, I mean, I like the idea of the 4-team divisions, and I like the idea of the sister division a lot. Like, I like that of rotating sister divisions every year, that you have different things. I mean, obviously, you're not going to rotate with every other division because, like, it would make no sense for the East to be, playing the West as a sister division. But there's three or 4 divisions you could easily rotate around, and
And the one interesting thing that you mentioned, Deck, as a part of the 8 division winners and then 8 wild cards, is you could have a predominantly Western conference or west of the Mississippi, wild card. Like say 6 of the 8 could be west of the Mississippi.
You would have to reseed. It'd have to be the 8 division winners would get there, and they would play. Like they would have to be that 1 would play 16, 2 would play 15. You'd have to go into that mode, which would be great. I think honestly would be great. I don't see any.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of resistance to that act because the GMs have historically talked about the gauntlet that's run in the playoffs is hard enough. If you start jumbling it so that it's possible in theory for Tampa to have to play LA in the first round.
Mm-hmm.
And then play Vancouver in the second round. It's going to be an issue. The team.
Here's my other option. Ready? My other option is this: 2 plays 3 in every division for a play-in to play 1. Therefore, you'd have that would be.
Then what are you playing the regular season for?
Well, because if you're finished, home ice is still going to matter too, and I think 2 plays 3 in like a best of 3 series for a play-in to play 1. We've talked about that already, right? We've already talked about 9 and 8 playing each other.
Yeah, we did, but not in a best 2 out of 3. It takes too long.
Yeah.
So it'll be like a 1-game series.
It has to be one. It has to be 1, and I don't think you can do a 2 and 3. Right. Like it's one thing to take the 8 and 9s, which if you barely eked into the playoffs, then you deserve to have a playoff against 9. But if you're the second place team, I don't know.
That's a tough fate. It is.
Yeah.
And I remember in the late 70s when it was a 1-16 playoff situation where like Buffalo played Vancouver in a best of 3 series in the first round.
Yeah, Philadelphia played Edmonton.
Yeah, it's
rough.
And the issue today in the modern athletics where it's funny, but we now have much better travel than we've ever had in the past. But it's a much bigger issue now. And in the old days, they just would played 3 games.
Right.
Great.
I mean, when Edmonton was playing that Philadelphia series, I talked to somebody one time. Edmonton was flying through Minnesota to get there. There was no, they didn't have their own plane. They had to go all these. It was crazy.
Yeah, and there wasn't even a day in between. If you look at the old schedules, say Philadelphia played Edmonton or Montreal played Edmonton. It would be games 1 and 2 back-to-back nights, and then there was 1 day to travel, and then they played. So they played the first 3 games or first 4 games of the series in 5 nights.
Right. I mean, you'd have 8 teams not making the playoffs, 24 teams making the playoffs if you had 2 play 3. Right. That's a lot. I agree.
The question that has to be answered, and I'm taking this in a direction that will totally bore everyone, so we'll cut it off as soon as I say this.
That's okay.
But the question that has to be answered to have a playoff structure that discounts geography is do tired athletes get injured more than non-tired athletes?
Right.
Because that's essentially the argument. If you're flying all the time and you're fatigued and you're wore out, are we going to, in the playoffs, are we going to lose more players?
Right. No, I mean it's a valid question.
Yeah, but it's not one that we want to debate. But
it's not one with a definite answer either. That's the problem. It's
and scheduling wise, it would be almost impossible if we did have like a team from the East Coast playing a team from the West Coast to give an extra day for travel and recovery. You couldn't really do that because then that series would take 2.5 weeks as opposed to another series taking a week and a half. And then it throws everything out of whack. So you have to be able to maintain a schedule, and I don't think that playing, Philadelphia playing Vancouver is conducive to keeping a schedule. And television and scheduling is important, obviously.
Well, the NHL would get 8 more games, though, if you had a play-in game. 8 more playoff games, right? They would get 8 more playoff games if you had that. And that would be an unbelievable thing. I mean, if you think about how incredible those games would be, they would be all if there was a one-game play-in.
I think we're going to see that maybe in the next decade. If they maintain the current divisional structures, I could see them, maybe having, say, 4 wild cards and having the top 2 host the 3 and 4 in a one-game play-in, like in baseball, how they're doing it, like like football, increasing their wild card games. It's nothing but revenue, and obviously the NHL, if they can bring in extra revenue, it makes all the sense in the world.
Yeah.
I did ask Gary Bettman that directly in the middle of this season, because obviously the success of baseball prompts that kind of questioning, and he basically said there's no appetite for it right now. But I agree with Mike. Eventually it is going to happen. I think when it'll happen is whenever there's a lull in the growth of the revenue, and they're just looking to spike it a little bit because you could charge playoff prices. I mean that's a pretty big revenue generator there, and you could sell those games. Those games have not. If you look around in baseball, they're sold to different networks.
Right. That's true too.
Yeah,
so you could sell that television package to ESPN or whomever.
Or Turner.
They would all be game 7s, and you could have it over the course of 3 nights or 2 nights.
Right.
Yeah. Now
it would be intense. It would really be intense, and it would also make the race to finish first intense in each division because you'd really know that if you don't finish first, you might be out really quickly.
I still don't like the 2 and 3 though. If that's the way it's going to break down, to me that's not the way these playing games are saying. But now the other point I want to bring up about all this though, and I think this is an important one. And I had brought this up before that someone who really matters told me, don't get too carried away about where the expansion candidates are located because we will, figure out how there'll be a structure that'll make all this work. And and nobody paid attention to that. Everybody always talked about, there's we need 2 in the West and blah 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 blah. Well, this sort of scenario that you're laying out here, although imperfect as it is, certainly feeds into the idea that there really is. We shouldn't worry about that one's in the East and one is in the West. We can figure out a way to make this work. I mean, to be honest, the structure that we've laid out here is not horrible. I don't like necessarily how we are going to play the playoffs, but the divisions and the number of games and the way we restructured that's not ideal, but no, neither is the one we have now.
Right.
So, what an endorsement! It's not horrible. Good job.
Yeah. No, I appreciate it. I mean, but there are so many horrible ideas on this stuff.
That's true.
That's what I think. That's
The one thing that's interesting and it hasn't been talked about a lot is Montreal may not be exactly completely thrilled with the fact of Quebec coming in the sense that they've had the province of Quebec as their territory for 20 years since the Nordique moved out in 95, I believe. Now all of a sudden they're going to have competition. I mean, it's not right next door to each other, but they're going to have competition. And
a sellout's a sellout. Like, how much more of a sellout? Yeah.
I don't think they care. I'm with Russ.
Okay.
I think Toronto would care more if another team was coming into Toronto than Montreal.
That's why it's not going to happen for a while. I continue to say that the only way it's going to happen is if the split of that ownership group happens, because then you have a mega billion Rogers Communications and a mega billion Bell involved in the ownership of MLS&E, and the only way that I think eventually that's going to implode, and one of them is going to go one way, and I think that them buying either another team from another NHL market or an expansion team is the only way you ever see a second team in Toronto.
I don't know why they're worried about it. All you got to do is look at Lakers, Clippers, Rangers, Islanders.
Yeah.
The team that's the established team remains the established team.
Right.
Right. And in Quebec, Montreal is a totally different scenario too. Like I remember talking to Marty Biron, who grew up a Quebec Nordiques fan, and he really wanted the Nordiques to come back. I mean, there's certain people just grew up Nordiques fans.
Yeah, and the Staples Center hosts the Clippers, the Lakers, and the Kings.
Right.
So you could conceivably have the Raptors, the Leafs, and a second Toronto team, at least for a couple years, because I know the reason that the other team would want their own arena would be strictly revenue, and they probably wouldn't want to play in the ACC because they would be renting space away from MLS&E. So that's why I think it might be a temporary solution while they're building a building someplace else.
Yeah.
But I don't think it would be a permanent solution.
No, for sure. I agree with that. All right, let's get into it. I know, sorry, this was a good conversation, so I don't want to stop it.
It is.
I thought it was really interesting.
Oh, yeah, me too. I think so, too. I think that it just shows you that these are done, like you said, Kevin. It's possible. And I really I'd like to see it, because I think that the idea of what division is our sister division this year is going to be fun, too, for people to look forward to, because you get a chance to play them more. And 6 teams within your division is what we do currently, correct? I'm trying to remember what we do currently. Oh, I always forget this. How many times do you play a team in your own division now? 6, right?
No, 4. It's 4 or 5.
4 or 5, right? Okay, yeah. So 6 is an increase. I think a perfect increase, and not 8.
It's not outlandish. It's not 8.
Right. It's not 8. So yeah, that works pretty well, and I think you get a really good sampling, and by the teams that win the divisions would be really good teams, and there are some divisions here the way you laid them out, Kevin. I think that makes more sense than the way I laid them out. I mean, the big question, the only question I have left with this thing would be, Ottawa and the New York teams, or Boston and the New York teams. Like, how should it, or you basically have Philly, Pittsburgh, Boston, Washington, or Philly, Pittsburgh, Ottawa, Washington.
Well,
Boston with New York teams, or Ottawa with New York teams. That to me is the
Well, let me just ask this. Right. Let me just ask this, because I mean, I think that this divisional setup would be interesting. I'm not sure how likely it is, but I think it's interesting. But based on, say, the 2 expansion teams that have filed will get expansion franchises, Vegas and Quebec.
Right.
Is there any chance that Quebec, at least temporarily, for scheduling purposes, is put in the Western Conference? It's not unprecedented, because Toronto was in the West for a number of years.
I don't think so. I mean, it's very different than Winnipeg, because of the incredible rivalries that exist. I mean, Winnipeg had good rivalries with Calgary and Edmonton too, no question about it, right? But the difference between that and Montreal, Quebec, which is such a, I don't think so. I think there's a better chance that Carolina or Columbus would get moved west. And unfortunately, Columbus could be in that spot. We don't want to move west, but they're the one team that, them and Carolina are the 2 teams that are set up to do that pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, basically what I could see it as, I mean, we saw it with, Winnipeg playing in the East. And, like, if Gary Bettman sensed that he was going to have trouble building a consensus, although, since we're not doing this next year,
right.
He has time on his side. But if he was, thought it was going to take a while, he could just say, okay, we'll do that as a temporary solution until we sort through this and come up with a bigger, plan that we can all agree on. So
yeah, no, it's possible.
I don't see it happen. I think they'll figure something out.
Yeah. I mean, I think that our system here that we're working on, I'm gonna put it together. I'm gonna send it to the NHL and tell them that's the way they should go. The question is, like, I guess the Ottawa versus Boston thing. I think Boston should be with the New York teams, and Ottawa should be with Philly, Pittsburgh, and Washington.
I mean, ultimately, I would agree with that. It's a tough swallow, but Boston, New York, and Boston, that's still a good rivalry. Not as good as Philly, but it's still good. I think you can live with that.
Because all the Boston.
I wouldn't object to that plan, Zach. To me, that's almost a coin flip. I like the Boston just being with the New York just because I think it gives it a nice, that's, the Rangers,
And you're talking bigger markets, Boston and the New York area. So I mean, Ottawa, they don't get screwed, but I'm saying they're because they're a smaller media market, then you can, I guess, justify it by putting them with those.
And they end up with 3 teams that are probably great ticket-selling teams for them. Philly, Pittsburgh, and Washington are all.
They can still show highlights of that Ottawa-Philly game that I missed.
Oh yeah, I mean Ottawa-Philly, there's a rivalry there for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean if you're Ottawa, you're going to get Ovechkin, you're going to get Crosby if you went that direction. So.
Yeah.
It's Giroux. I mean, that's a guy they love over there too. So.
Right, Giroux grew up right around there, right? He grew up in Gatineau. He grew up in Gatineau, I think, right? So, no, he grew up in Northern, but he played in Gatineau.
He played in Gatineau, but he grew up close to there.
Yeah. So, I mean, for the short term, that's pretty good. And all 3 New York teams hate Boston the same way. I mean, I think that's the one thing that they all agree on. All 3 New York teams hate Boston, so that's something they can all agree with.
That's a fact.
Boston would have a tough time with it, but yeah, I do like the Chicago, Detroit, St. Louis, Nashville division. Kev, I like that a lot. I mean, Nashville gets, and Detroit's, those aren't far trips for them, and they could get occasionally paired with Toronto, Montreal, Buffalo, and Quebec, once in a while. So every other year they could be paired with that division. So really, you don't really have an East and West in this thing, as much as you just have these groupings.
I think rather than jumble it all up, I would just sort of divide the playoffs. Still have an East and a West to determine the playoffs. I just think the geography issue is a big one for coaches and general managers, and so I would still sort of do it the same way that we do it now.
Yeah, I could see that. I could see that being doable.
But when you do that will become an issue for the Detroit. They're right back where they were before.
Right. In the playoffs, definitely they're right back where they are.
Play the Kings, in the first round, and the games are like, the television ratings in Detroit should be phenomenal. Hockey town, but they were good, but they weren't as great as they could have been because games were starting after people have to go to bed. So. Right.
That's true. Well, this hopefully, I don't know. It's interesting to think about, and I like it better than what we have now. Because I'm really not a fan of this system that we have now very much at all. I mean, the two plays 3 thing, and there's too many good teams last year that should have been in it from the West. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of how it is now. I think we need to get the 16 best teams in there, and maybe you just figure out some way of, maybe you get 4 teams, like you're saying, 4 teams from 2 of the pairings and 4 teams from another 2 of the pairings that are. So you keep these things relatively close-knit, but that could work too. Anyway, if you have any ideas, please email us you can email me at eklund@hockeybuzz.com, and we'll think a bit as well. But we're going to put together our proposal and give it to the league, and make ourselves known here, because I think it's a good one.
Maybe that's what they should do. Maybe they should open it up to the fans, and they should let the fans decide what they want to do, and we'll see how that works out.
Yeah.
Draw, and once they decide on the one, they draw it out, and the guy gets season tickets to the team. So.
Yeah, I mean, there was something I did like about this whole thing. The original setup was I did like having a Canada East and a Canada West. Like those 2 divisions, because you've got 4 teams in Canada East, you've got 4 teams in Canada West, and I know that Buffalo gets screwed, but and Boston,
Buffalo always gets screwed.
Yeah, I know. So.
But don't we already have enough of the Canada us versus them?
Yeah.
I'm weary of that.
Yeah. I can see that. No, I agree with you. It's just going to be emphasized more and more as we go with the World Cup of Hockey. It's definitely going to be. I mean, I like that rivalry. Obviously, they're one of the shows I want to do someday are the best Canadian-U.S. moments. When they played against each other. There's some great moments there, so that's a good show for someday. But well, anyway, guys, yeah, thanks. We're not gonna do any of our nominations today because we got into this really good. But I will give you guys a hint a little bit, and I would like some of these email us your suggestions because this is what we're trying to do. We want to have a situation where we have new awards are given out beyond the awards that we give out now. Like, instead of the Norris Trophy, we know who won the Norris, but what about the best defensive defenseman? Because the Norris Trophy is generally the best offensive defenseman for
I called it the Rod Langway Trophy.
Right. We need names like that. I agree with you. I love that idea. And I like the most intimidating player, the best backup goalie. Things like this are what we would like to do. And what I'd like to do is on every show for the next couple of weeks or so, and just go through a couple of them, have us nominate them, and have you guys vote on who wins these awards. Because I know we always say we have too many awards, and in some ways we do, but I think in the summer is a great time to look at all the aspects of hockey, beyond that. Like, I think the backup, I would definitely nominate Carter Hutton as the best backup goalie in the NHL, and go from there. So anyway,
I think the award should be named after him. What do you mean?
Oh yeah, the Carter Hutton Award. All right, I got it. We'll do that.
I like it.
Damn it! You stole my joke.
You were gonna do that?
I was gonna nominate Carter Hutton.
Well, poor Carter Hutton. Well, we'll be back again tomorrow, guys. Remember, without the buzz, it is just hockey. Thanks for watching.